Hi everyone, and welcome to Elite Rugby SandC podcast. First off, if you haven't already, sign up and join Elite Rugby SandC today. We provide you all your strength, conditioning, speed, and recovery needs. You can try before you buy, so try our 7-day $7 trial to get a taste of what we offer here at Elite Rugby SandC. Sign up to our newsletter and receive free bonus content each and every single week. So take your game to the next level, become a beast, and join Elite Rugby SandC today. Today I'm joined by Coach Matthew Rodgers. Matt is the owner and head coach at the athletic club located in Campbell in Canberra. Matt has been a coach for around 10 years and counting and has worked across many different training facilities working with general population, amateur and professional athletes from a whole different range of sports. I've known Matt for around 6 years and he's one of the best coaches I know and even better friend. On this episode, we discuss the importance of having a good culture and community in your gym and sporting team, how to build that community and drive the culture. We talk about values and standards within the team and gym, how to be coachable, and how to understand your why as a coach and athlete and why that is important. This was a fantastic episode, and I know everyone will get a lot of takeaways from this episode. Enjoy! So g'day, Matty. How are you?
I'm good, Coach. How are you?
Yeah, I'm going really well, thanks today. So for all our listeners out there, so majority of our videos you see on Instagram or TikTok, if you follow us on TikTok, yes, we do have TikTok at Elite Rugby SandC. Matty is the owner of the gym that we film our exercises in and producer our content. So did you want to tell our listeners a bit about the athletic club, Matty?
Yeah, man, definitely. So the athletic club basically is the brainchild of me over 10 years in the industry, working towards a gym that provided quality training for the general population with the side part of offering to athletes and people maybe that are highly skilled recreational athletes as well. The basis is that we take the scientific principles from training an athlete and we can dull it down and then we can serve it to general population people to see how those principles work in practice with Gen Pop, and then how we can then make them a little bit more clever and put them into people that are recreational athletes, semi-professional and professional athletes, and basically get the most from their training in a system and a gym that's a little bit smaller with always a coach leading you and helping you guide the way. The idea is to sort of progress your training, your methods as the coach progresses their training and their methods throughout their career. So it's a little bit of a collaboration process, I suppose.
No, that's really cool. I think you got a very unique gym down here in Canberra in Campbell. And it's a really good place to train. So when you first opened up the gym sort of, 2 years ago, how did you build the culture and community that you see in the gym today?
Yeah, that's really good. Well, I did have some mentor input when I was opening this gym. I had a lot of people around me that helped me get to this point. And I think one of the biggest blessings I had is I gave a lot of time between my previous workplace and to me then opening up my own space, which allowed me to really think about who I was as a coach, where I wanted to head as a coach, and why I wanted to be a coach. And in that time, I suppose every coach or every PT always has that dream of opening a gym. I didn't realize when I started or when I quit my old job to then create this, how much work was put into it. And I needed to create everything down from like your privacy policies to your templates where people sign up to the software you're using, the layout and the format of the gym, what sort of services and offers you provide for people that are coming to your club. That it gave me an opportunity to really reflect on how I wanted it to look. And I've worked at enough places and been in the industry long enough and been exposed to enough gyms that I knew what I liked and what I didn't. And so I think to create that culture, I really needed to get down to what I value and what the people that I value around me valued as well. So the coaches that I look up to and the gyms that they are in, or the people that they coach, or the circles that they sit in, and what are the values that they uphold, and how do I implement that into a club? And I think when you're really, really sure of that, it sort of happens naturally, but there's a lot of work to go into. It's not as simple as this, I suppose, just you are a great person, it happens. You've really got to put some thought into deliberate practice into who you are, or thought and reflection into who you are, so that you can create that space and that culture.
I think the thing I like the most is you've got your own values and standards that you want for the club, but you're also having the input from the members as well, or the athletes. It's really
Correct.
important
Yeah.
to have that collaboration, because you don't want to be that sort of dictators, like this is the way everything's going to happen. It's what do you think you value, and how can that enhance the performance of the club or the organization as well?
Oh, definitely, man. I think you've got to be, or drop your ego enough to look around you and see the kind of people that come to you. I think there's a little bit of, without sounding holistic, there's a little bit of energy in the world, in the sense that, like, you attract like-minded and similar people. And sometimes the frustrations or the things you like in some of your members, your clients, your athletes, there may be things that you need to look at yourself that you maybe need to work on. Or maybe there are things that you go, oh, wow, it's really funny that we keep attracting this type of person as our clientele. It's funny we keep attracting this athlete to work with us. Why is that? What are we offering, or what are we not offering that's allowing this? And that's how you adapt and grow a culture over time. It should never stay stagnant. You should let it adapt as your membership grows and changes as well.
So what do you think has allowed you to create that good culture and environment that allows athletes to feel valued, safe, and always put 100% effort in as well?
Yeah, that's good. Again, I think it comes around to the base people you surround yourself with. I think when members come in here and they get an idea, it's almost like a hierarchy. There's always obviously a closer knit circle to an owner, to a coach, to a gym. And those people's values then create a second circle, third circle of people surrounding it. And I think by being consistent over the years as a person, if you have particular values, maybe you're always on time, maybe you have a no bullshit policy in your gym, maybe you're just a person that is known for being quiet and working hard, and so you leave your ego at the door. Basically, if you're consistent long enough with those sorts of values, I think that's how you continue to create that sort of style in your gym and keep that 100% effort flowing. We also try to keep it lighthearted at the gym here, as you know. Like, it's obviously good to work hard, but work hard and have fun. If you're not having fun in training, then you can't really put in that 100% effort, because things just get a little bit too pressure. We get too much pressure in the gym, and then it just becomes not fun. People don't put as much effort in, I guess.
So what are some of the things you value at the athletic club?
Yeah, we've got a set of standards and commandments that we have here at the club. Things that we value are people that are on time, people that listen, people that show up and genuinely want to get better. So the main thing in premises that we created with the club was just come in and decide that you're not happy with your current state of health, your current state of athletic preparedness, and decide that you're going to commit to getting better, whatever it is, and going through the waves of the ups and downs. And I think we have this general rule that we understand that life's not this linear progression where we're just going to keep getting better, and we just ride the waves together.
It's awesome. I think people sort of undervalue culture. Like, it's one of the things that you probably don't think about as much, but when you do reflect on the gym or sporting team or anything like that, you're like, yeah, the culture was actually pretty shit. So I didn't really enjoy my time there. And I think you really got to understand as an athlete, when you're picking a coach or picking a gym or wanting to play with a new sporting team, you really got to say, like, what's the culture there? What are you guys known for? Can you actually help me improve to be the person or player that I want to be? So I think, culture is something that we sort of probably forget, and then you probably reflect on it like, oh yeah, they actually didn't have a really good culture, or they did have a really good culture, and I'm trying to find something very similar to that as well.
Oh, 100%, man. I think people undervalue it. I read a post during the week about, it's interesting, a lot of people stay on with the training, not so much for your systems of coaching and practices after a while. It's because of you and your values. And I think human beings, we sort of feel that a lot more than we think. You walk into a place and you go, I don't really like the vibe here. I don't see myself training. And you need to have a good environment if your athletes are going to really progress and if they're really going to flourish in that environment. And culture comes down to it. It's super important. I think you can't overcoach it, and you can't sort of cultivate it down to a fine tea, but you do need to have some sort of direction idea of who you are and where you want to lead that culture to, and then get the right people to help create it.
Totally. And I think you can look to sport for that, whereas you look at, say, the All Blacks or like the Melbourne Storm or even the Brumbies here in Canberra, They have a lot of player turnover. Like players will come and go, but those three teams have always been at sort of the pinnacle of their sport. They're always
Yep.
up there competing, always up there winning, and always creating new athletes and really good people as well along the way. So I think if you can, build that culture and community, you're going to be around forever. And if you don't have a good culture or community, then you're probably not going to get to where you want to go.
Definitely agree with that. Yeah.
So I was rereading a book. It's called what was it called? You win in the locker room first. It's something that I've mentioned on the podcast before by Gordon Smith. There's a quote that I wanted to read, and it's really, really good. So it's culture drives expectations and beliefs. Expectations and beliefs drive behavior. Behavior drives habits, and habits create the future. So it all starts with culture.
That's good. I didn't know you could read, Kiz.
Yeah,
But
I
that's
can
good.
read.
New one for your listeners out there.
Yeah. So yeah, I'd definitely recommend anyone, athletes, coaches, parents, whatever, like try and read those books on culture. And it's really good. It's just an NFL book about a coach who was in the NFL for the Atlanta Falcons, and just how he changed the culture. And he's like, in an organization, an organization like the NFL, we train pretty much the same. We all have very similar talent, and the main things that it comes down to is those little one percenters. And if you can make a culture that everyone wants to turn up and have fun and strive to be excellent, then that's probably going to be the game changer that you need.
Oh, agreed. I think in that sporting sense, it's really important for parents or athletes to actually seek out a coach or a team that reflects their values in terms of culture. I think a lot of the time in young sport, like parents are looking for qualifications. Oh, what does this coach do? Who were they? Were they a sportsman before they started coaching? But they often neglect or forget to look at what's the team like. Go and watch the team practice, see how they mesh. Ask previous players that have played for them. Get a vibe from the community if it's a community sports team, and think about how do the general public view that team. Have a look at how the players view that team. What do the sports peoples and assistants view that team? How do officials view a team in any sporting code? I think that's really important, because if you put your child, or if you as a young athlete go into the wrong setting, it can really navigate you in a direction you might not succeed in.
And you might push the kid away from playing that sport as well. They're like, oh, I had a really bad experience playing for that team or organization. I don't want to play that sport anymore. And they might just have bad experiences, which might drive behaviors that they don't become active when they're older, which would be very disappointing. So 100% agree.
Or don't mesh with teams. Maybe their talent takes them to another team, but their culture and their values can't really keep them in that level, and that's what lets them down in the end. It's really important for young players to have a long, hard think about the team they're playing for, and not just think they're successful, that means they've got a good culture. They might not be the right fit for you. You've got to move on.
Totally. So in your experience, what has been a toxic environment that has led to a bad culture and community, and what did you learn from this experience or experiences?
Yeah, I think any toxic environment for me, if I boiled it down, it comes from poor leadership. I think when you spoke at the beginning about creating culture, if you don't have a general direction and idea from a leader or someone who's in a hierarchy position, I think there becomes a directionless crew where you have a team of people under you that will search for their own direction. And that can be a conflict of interest to your own as a leader, or it can be a conflict of interest to just everyone in general, where you're all working for your own values, your own goals. And in turn, it means that there's no sense of camaraderie, no community, and no team. And therefore, it's really hard to progress. Really learned from that early on that to be a leader means to take it seriously, and whoever looks up to you to take that with, I suppose, the sense that you owe that person something. If they look up to you as a leader, I'm not saying you owe them the shirt off your back, but you at least owe them a consistent and a professional role to make sure that they get from you what that they see you as. And so you've got to uphold those values at all time.
I think, just like you said, leadership. I think that's super important. And if you don't have a clear leader or leaders, then just like you said, you can go off in your own direction, and that makes it really hard because you're all trying to strive for the same thing. And if you're all going through different paths, to get there, then it can get quite confusing. And then if it's poor leadership, then it just filters down to everyone else, and who knows what's going to happen, and it just doesn't lead to a cohesive group, and you sort of get a feeling of we're all individuals instead of we're actually a team. Even if you're playing an individual sport, you're still part of a team. So I think it's really important that you got that leadership, and the leaders in that position as well. Make sure that you can communicate really well, and talk to everyone, from if they're your assistant sort of leader or a high up head coach, all the way down to someone who just fills the water bottles up. I think you should be able to treat everyone the same, but also understand their story and understand what's driving them, and how they help the organization and team as well. And if you can communicate your message and communicate that on a one-on-one level as well to everyone in that organization, team, doesn't matter what it is, then it makes it a lot better to be able to achieve your goal and avoid having that bad toxic environment that is so detrimental to performance.
Oh, definitely, coach. I agree with you on that. I think a lot of people take for granted opening up any organization. I don't think any thought goes into a lot of culture, and that's why I think a lot of gyms fail early on. I think that's why a lot of businesses fail early on. You can go into anywhere, whether it's a cafe, whether it's a retail store, a gym, a sporting field. And I think someone who's got a little bit of experience about them in leadership, you can tell straight away that there's no sense of leadership and camaraderie in place, and that's really a downfall. People don't mesh, they don't work as well, and therefore they struggle. But you're spot on. I think as human beings, I'm not saying we look always for someone to follow, but definitely having someone that is a leadership and has the core values that they're reminding people of is really important for how we work.
So things outside of the gym, even though this is gym related. So a few weeks ago, you had the push-a-thon, push-ups, raising for a good cause for Lifeline.
Canberra.
Do you think having events like that for a gym sporting team outside of, I don't know, like a serious sporting setting can really help boost the camaraderie and bring the team together?
Oh man, 100%. I think some of the times that we've had really good events at the club, they've been based on actually nothing to do for the club. Like there's nothing in it for us in that sense. We're doing it for external purposes, for someone else, for other events that are going on beyond our control. The bushfires, the floods, like I said, Lifeline Canberra that we had recently, they give people a sense that they're working towards something more than just themselves. And I think that that's really important in a community setting, because essentially every little group that we're a part of is a community in some sense. So whether the suburb you live in, whether it's the gym you attend, the local cafe you go to, the school, your sporting team, they're all communities. And it feels good to help other communities outside of that. And you need to. It's important for your growth as well. It's get out of your own ego and head.
There's been multiple times where for rugby that we've done things like that. So one of my old rugby clubs, we would do the Red Door Appeal. So just go around knocking on doors, trying to raise some money for the Red Cross. And there's been other times where we've just had a social event. So after training, the club would put on just a free sausage sizzle and just get people staying after training, having a sausage, having a soft drink or a beer. And it's been a really great way to just interact, and on a non-serious level as well. And I think if you could have those events, you don't have to have them all the time, but just multiple times throughout the year can really drive that culture and community. And you might even talk to someone that you haven't talked to properly in a social setting that might just have a really great story, and you get to know them better, they get to know you, and that really drives your training because you understand their story and their goals, what they're trying to achieve. And I think that is really, really good to be able to drive the culture and community that you're trying to create.
Yeah, definitely, coach. Well, that's essentially how we build relationships, isn't it? You want people to form relationships because they're stronger than the relationship they have with a barbell or the football field or the basketball or whatever it is sport they're playing. You want them to have a stronger connection with a person. It's always going to last longer, and it's always going to be more beneficial for you and your club.
100%.
Hi everyone. We just wanted to take a break from this episode. We hope you are enjoying this episode so far, and also all the content we have produced. We appreciate all the support from our listeners and followers so far. If you haven't already, sign up to Elite Rugby SandC newsletter today. We provide you free, exclusive content each and every single week to our subscribers. Link in the bio. Remember to like, subscribe, and share Elite Rugby SandC on social media to all your friends and families. So thanks again for your support, and now back to the episode.
So, if athletes or coaches don't stick to the values that the gym or organization has created, how do you, as say the leader, go around fixing and resolving this issue?
Well, I cannot emphasize enough communication. I think as I've gotten older as a coach and as a person, I've realized that communication is the most undervalued skill that we all have. When it comes to reinforcing those, I used to be quite a passive person. It's probably more of my nature, a little bit more of a people pleaser. But as I've had to lead up into a business role and have difficult conversations with people, I've learned that being passive doesn't necessarily work. When you see an issue, it's best to identify that issue, identify really early on if it's important enough to have a conversation. And I mean, if you're having that internal conversation, it probably is. So you need to address it with the individual, the individuals, or whatever the issue is inside the club or your sporting team, and just sort it out then and there. And it's so much easier. It's like ripping off a Band-Aid. I like to use that old sort of Chinese proverb of that, the want of a horseshoe. But sort of like didn't have a nail, didn't have a horseshoe, the message didn't get, the war was lost. And I think that if you let those threads get pulled long enough, they can become a real issue. And so if you want to manage the culture in your club or your sporting team or your workplace, as soon as you see an issue, you've got to address it. But address it in the right way, in the right context.
I totally agree. Just rip that Band-Aid off and just be open and honest with the athlete, coach, or parent. Doesn't matter what the situation is. If you're open and honest about it and it's coming from a good place, then hopefully they understand. Some people take this sort of feedback and criticism really poorly, and you can't control that. But if you can control of it coming from a good place and being open and honest, then you'll probably get the outcome that you want. It might not be straight away, but over time, I think you'll get the outcome to help fix those issues that have arose. So
definitely.
Yeah, if you can just be open and honest and just say, all right, sweet, thanks for providing that feedback to me. I promise it won't happen again type thing. And some people just don't know if they're doing something bad. Like it might be normal for them. Like, so if they don't know what they're doing bad and you haven't really had that conversation with them, then they won't fix or change their behavior.
It also doesn't give you an opportunity to grow. Like you might think that something's annoying you. I'm trying to think of an example in the gym, won't come to me, but that's all right. If something that you decide is an issue and you want to talk to someone about, you get their perspective on it as well. And it might give you an opportunity to reflect and go, oh, hey, actually, yeah, that is a much better way to do it. And why is that old way really upsetting me? Yeah, you can do that. That makes sense for sure. No worries. I remember an example of a mentor of mine said that he once had a person who came late all the time to their classes and sessions and let it go. And one day they were like 10 minutes late. And that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And he exploded, unleashed on this person for no reason. It was really poor communication in front of a gym. And this person broke down crying and said the reason they were late, they just found out their father passed away. I know that's an extreme example, but when it comes to those forms of communication, sometimes it is better to stomp it out because you don't dwell on it. And you can maybe find out 6 weeks earlier when you were being late, they just go, I'm just really time poor, I don't leave the office, rather than finding out the person, their family passed away. And then you feel like a real idiot.
I think it comes back to that communication aspect that you spoke about. And so something that I was thinking about yesterday, like, I don't know if it's a term or anything, but like having like active communication where that's you and how you talk and hold yourself. But there's also like the passive communication is like, okay, how do you listen? Can you just stand there and listen to your clients? And they might tell you, oh, my such and such is quite sick at the moment. You're like, oh, okay, that's why this is happening type thing. And if instead of like just blowing up at that person for doing that, because you just don't know what's going on in people's lives and life is so chaotic. So if you can sort of spend a bit more time probably listening a bit more and then choosing your words correctly to then respond to that, I think can go a long way. And you'll be surprised what people tell you. Like just being a coach and a personal trainer, this is something you know as well, like you're always shocked about what some things people tell you, and you're like, okay, that's pretty personal. So thanks for telling me. I really appreciate that you're feeling quite comfortable in saying that. But it also allows you to understand their story and what's going on in their lives.
Yeah, correct. Like you said, that passive form of communication is important. Reflect as a coach. Like if you've often got your guard up, arms crossed, you're a person that's a little bit moody or short with people because maybe you're trying to keep a certain, I don't know, environment going. You want it to be that hard style of training. We're all just here to work. We don't talk about our problems. That's fine. But when someone doesn't come to you with a problem, don't get upset at them because it's really your issue that you haven't dealt with. You haven't made them a more approachable person.
A good tactic I like to use is I like to talk a bit during the sessions and allow my athletes to get to know me a bit more. And
Yeah.
by them allowing to ask questions to me and answering it quite honestly, will allow them to like, oh, okay, I'm understanding you a bit more. So, which means I can then start to share my story a bit more as well. So I always find that it's a good tactic is to allow the athletes to ask me some personal questions. Obviously there's a certain line you don't cross when you're asking those questions, but I'm pretty open, honest person. So if you want to ask me something, then yeah, I'll tell you what's going on and give you my thoughts on that. And hopefully that allows you to open up as well.
Yeah, I think that's a great method. Definitely seeing the way you take your athletes through sessions. You've got this, you set the standard of you've got a professional working environment, but you've always got a good way of having the doors open in a sense that you do have a little bit of a banter. You share some stories about yourself and make yourself feel a little bit vulnerable because we often forget, whether it's an athlete or general pop, the gym's quite an intimidating place. And it's quite normal for anyone to feel a little bit of anxiety. And especially when a coach is watching you. I don't know many coaches out there listening to this. When was the last time you got under the spotlight and had someone rip apart your squat or your sprint or had you take you through a speed and agility session or power and give you some feedback? It's really important to jump back into that pool, whether you're a new coach, whether you've been in there for years. It doesn't matter how much you know. Go and find someone and be in that end because it's really interesting how you feel and it gives you a good insight into what your clients and what your athletes might be feeling during your sessions.
100%. I love that. That's good. So moving on, this question it still relates to the culture and community topic that we're talking about today. So what does it mean to be coachable and how can athletes be coachable?
Coachable. I've thought of this one for years. And the one thing that comes to mind, I think when it comes to being coachable is honesty. I think it's the one for me with clients, whatever's happening in their life, athletes, whatever's happening in their life, and as a coach, you have to be, I have this two-way system of honesty. I remember early on in my training days, I hired a powerlifting coach, which actually he worked at a little gym that I was training at. It was the first time I'd ever done powerlifting. I wanted to be strong. I wanted to impress this guy. And often I'd go and do my sessions late at night. And if I was really fatigued, I'd just drop sets, I'd drop reps. I'd try and get as much of the volume in, but if I couldn't do it, I couldn't do it. And I'd lie on my spreadsheet. I'd be like, yep, did that, life's all good. Didn't know that this guy was really particular about the way he coached me, and he'd actually go and watch the security footage and follow up on me, not like a skip. But it taught me a big lesson of being honest with your coach, whether you can do something or not, and being honest with your athletes if you can do something or not. If something's beyond your skill set, just say it. They're going to respect you so much more if you can't coach them. It's the same as a lot of coaches hold on to athletes. Maybe it's their star athlete for long beyond their abilities. And at some point, you've got to let them go and move on to someone that can help them in an aspect that they maybe need. But that two system of honesty goes. If something's injured, you're not feeling right, you need to adapt a session, do it. That auto-regulation is really important for your clientele and your athletes because it's going to get the best session for them that day. And vice versa, if you're not really in the zone, you're not having a great time as a coach, we're all human, we have those. You can let it know, communicate it in the right way. I'm not saying bring a dimmer down onto a session. If you've got some personal stuff going on, don't let the whole team know just as you're about to start practice or get primed and prepped for a game. But communication, that honesty is the thing that makes a person coachable, and I think makes a coach a great coach.
100%. And it just comes back to those values and the culture that you created. And if you can create a culture where people are open and honest and can clearly communicate and share their thoughts, then it makes it so much easier for people to be coachable. And yeah, you can't go wrong with that. So how do coaches then provide the environment for athletes to be coachable? Because it's very easy to say you need to be more coachable because you're you think you're a really good athlete, but you're not allowing me to do my job properly. But it could be coming back to you as the coach. Well, are you creating the environment for the athlete to be coachable?
Yeah, that's a good one. I think we probably touched on a few of those points throughout today. So it's sort of, it comes down to the environment in the sense that you guys create a space where you feel comfortable enough to share things so they can be coachable, that honesty. And it comes down to sort of making sure that your athletes feel that they're there to get better, or you have the skill set to get them better as well, really. And again, just matching people up with similar personalities. So I think if someone doesn't mesh with someone, they're not going to be in an environment where they feel that they can be coached, and they're not going to really listen to you. And then you've lost control, I guess, from there. Letting go of athletes that aren't right for you, and athletes letting go of coaches that aren't right for them.
100%.
That's how you keep a good coachable environment, keep a good team that you can coach.
I think it also comes back to, like, obviously it's the coach. The coach, just make sure you have the environment that allows the athlete to be coachable. But you as the athlete, can you handle criticism? Like if I say, this is the thing that's letting you down, why you're not getting the results, like, can you take that criticism on and say, thanks, coach, for being open and honest with me about that. I'll try to address that, but what's some things I can do to help the problem as well? But if you're an athlete that is very sort of, the shield's up, sort of Captain America, you got your shield up there, and you just can't take criticism or feedback. And every time that you take it, it's all negative, and you're like, screw that person. Like, what do you know type thing. Then you're bringing that culture and community down, and you're not allowing yourself to be coachable as well. So it's a two-way street. The coach has got to do it in the correct way, but the athlete, you got to be able to take that criticism on. And just remember, the coach is doing it to help you to become better. They're not doing it to bring you down and say, oh, no, you're trash or anything like that. They're trying to bring you up so you can raise the standard of playing and competition, which will then enhance the team performance as well. So just got to remember, it's all coming from a good place, even though if it's a negative situation, it's coming from a good place. And we're all doing it for the team.
Well, here's one for coaches, I suppose, is how often, and have you ever, provided your team or your athletes with your standard of expectations? And same for athletes. How often have you communicated to your coach what you expect in return? And sometimes just communicating those openly. We have here at the club a set of standards, which are sort of 10 golden rules of what we expect people to adhere to whilst they're here in a session. And often we have to remind people. We don't go as far. I know a lot of gyms sort of do that. They have them written up on the walls in some bodybuilding gyms of like, we're here to train, we don't work out, things like that, really tough stuff. But it actually is super important because it's crystal clear then, and you can then refer to them. You can say to someone after, like, well, it's commandment number 7. Like, we always say hi to everyone in the club as we enter it. I always give my coach a high five as I finish. Whatever it might be, think about the standards that you want to implement to be able to create that culture, that environment, and have a coachable team or athlete, and then communicate it to them on a regular basis. If you're not, it's really your own fault.
I think it's good to revisit those standards and goals that you create, because something that I see in team sports and some of the organizations that I have been with is you do the start of the year, you create your goals, and then you don't ever revisit those goals again. And it's like, okay, you got to make sure that we follow up 3 months later or 6 months later. We're following up with our standards or goals that were set, and have we actually achieved those goals as a team, but individually as well? Are we actually doing our best to help keep the standard for the team and an organization, or able to achieve those goals? So I think it's something that you got to constantly remind people. It doesn't have to be daily. It's just something that sits in the back of their head. So if a certain situation occurs, they know what they stand for, what the organization stands for, and pick the right decision as well, especially outside of the organization, team, or gym, because you still represent that community that you're with when you're outside of the organization as well. And more referencing when you go out on the town. So the team, like when you're gonna celebrate after a win or loss, just make sure that you remember those standards and stuff as well when you're out there partying as well.
100%. Yeah, you've got values to uphold as well. Just because you're celebrating a win or you're drowning out the views of a loss as a team. You've got to make sure that you represent who you are and who your teammates are, who your coach represents, your sporting club. Yeah, and uphold them, definitely.
So last couple of questions. So do you as a coach have a why? We talked about this more at the start. And if so, what is that why? And how has that why sort of evolved over the years as a coach?
Yeah, I definitely have a why. I've heard the term for over a decade, and it's probably like 5 or 6 years that I've been really concrete with what my why is. I'm like many people. I read the book Start With Why by Simon Sinek. Great read if you haven't. Great audio book as well if you're not into reading like Kiz. My why really extends from my own experience with training is that I realized at an early age, the human body is an amazing thing. And this is what I think makes athletes so incredible. And seeing world records drop, seeing what people do on the field, off the field, is based on the stresses we apply to it. We adapt and we get better. Obviously, they've got to be the right stress. We can go on all the different scientific principles. But I learned early on that if I just sort of got a bench press bar and I pressed that one week with a certain weight, and the next week I put a little bit more weight on, and when I went for a run, I tried to push a little bit faster on this, my body got better. And not only that, it sort of changed the way that I looked, it changed the way that I felt, how I started to interact with the people around me, how people around me interacted with me. And it made me realize that anything you want to change and adapt, you can do it yourself. There's obviously a lot of learning material, there's mentors along the way, there's coaches along the way that can help with you, but at the end of the day, it's your responsibility. And so my why is I want to lay the path for people to be able to do that. And I want to be able to provide people with the tools to do that as well. So in the sense, my why is that I want to be a guide or a coach for people to better themselves in all aspects of life. So not just on the sporting field, not just in the professional workplace, but I think if you're healthier, you're stronger, you're more resilient, you'll be a better human being in general. I know that word gets used around a lot. You definitely have that mantra, Kiz, of that be better performance, which is really important. But it's just so true. There's not a better, for lack of term, way to say it. You've just got to try and be better as a human. Be better than yesterday. Be better than the session before. Be better than your teammates or your opposition expects you to be. Try and be better. And if you have that mantra of every day, I want to try and me be better, and I want to try and sprinkle a little bit of that better into other people's lives. You can take it with a bit of tongue in cheek. You can be the really serious coach, but often strive for that 1% each day, and that adds up over time. And my why really is just I want everyone around me to be better. And I think from that, you create an amazing community that is like a supercharged version of you getting better then. Everyone around you better. If you've got the best teammates around you and you're the worst in sense of skill level, by the end of the year, if you really implement a lot of these things and you communicate well and you practice and you train, you'd probably be the best out of that team.
Totally. And I think that applies to both coaches and athletes when we talk about your why. Like it really helps you understand what you're trying to achieve, and especially on those dark days and when things aren't going right, you're like, oh fuck. Well, sorry for swearing, people, but you just get lost a bit on that path. And if you can refer back to that why, if you've gotten written up, I have it written up in my bedroom, so I can sort of see it every day when I walk past it. And even if you just have something saved on your screen, on your iPhone or Android, then you can sort of just refer back to it. And, oh yeah, that's what I'm doing for. And it just helps you make those better decisions, but it also allows you just, to reset your mind and understand what you're doing so you can do it the best that you can do it at. So yeah, it's definitely for coaches and athletes, definitely have your why and keep referring back to it.
Definitely. It's a good place to start. And like you said, having it somewhere where you can read it constantly is really important. If you don't have one, read that book, Start With Why by Simon Sinek, and have a think about what your why is. I think it's really important for anyone. If you don't know it, you better. And it has to be something concrete, more than just, I do it so I want to be a millionaire one day. I want to get that $20 million contract. That's great. I'm sure that's one of the reasons. But then look deeper into that. Maybe it's because you want financial security because you have a young family, you want to provide everything for them. And that is an amazing why. That can make people get up at all sorts of hours and train ridiculous amounts of time and become the best athlete they can be. Same for coaches. But you have to go deeper than the sort of superficial things.
Totally. So one thing that you touched upon in your why is sort of practicing what you preach. Do you think that's really important for coaches out there to be able to practice what they're preaching?
100%. Yeah. I've got a no bullshit policy with everything. If someone's not doing something they say, you've lost my respect straight away. I'm not saying everything in the sense, like I don't expect someone who's coaching an elite rugby team to be able to still run a 10-second 100 meters or be able to tackle a 100-kilo guy. But I mean in the sense that you've got similar values that you expect from people and that you're trying to walk the walk. It's the same as an Olympic lifting coach. Like you should be able to coach people and be training and have an idea of what your athletes are doing. Just because you might not be able to snatch 180 kilos overhead, at least you're snatching 80 kilos, which might be equivalent to that 180 in terms of effort level. It's really important. You have to walk the walk. You have to talk the talk because it's that honesty policy.
And you also gain that a bit more respect from your athletes or clients. Like, that person does that. Awesome. Or they can really actually do that movement or can do that running distance or whatever like that. And you gain a lot of respect from your team and your athletes and clients. So definitely continue to do it so you can practice what you preach. And it also makes it a lot easier if you're able to understand what the athlete is going through. Say, for instance, they're doing a Bronco, so you can get their 1.2 time. You're like, I actually know how hard that is, and I probably should adjust my session afterwards because they're going a full maximum for, depending how fast you do it, but like around 4 to 7 minutes, depending your size and all that. But after that, they're pretty screwed. So you probably don't want to do another high intensity block straight after that. You might want to do something a bit lower intensity and then build back to it. So if you can understand and put yourself in your athlete's shoes, it makes programming and your coaching a lot easier because you can understand that, not just doing things for the sake of doing things, to be honest.
Yeah, that's a good point. A really good point. It's that old saying of like, some coaches will never put someone through a session they haven't done themselves. And I think, I'm not so, but I think there's some truth to that. You've got to have an understanding. If it's sort of like week 7 of a season, athletes are starting to get really fatigued. If you're an SandC coach and you can't understand why, because you haven't had that level of fatigue, you're not all these games deep, it's important to be able to have lived that in some sense, or at least lived it in some way that you can connect with them and you know where you can adapt and adjust 100%.
Awesome. So that's all the questions I have for today. So where is the best place people can find you on social media?
We're obviously all over Instagram, which is the Athletic Club Canberra, CBR is our Instagram tag. And then I have my personal tag, which is just Mr_human_movement. And then obviously, you can find us on our website for the gym if you want to know a little bit more about what we do, www.theathleticlubcanberracbr.com.au as well.
Awesome. So thanks for taking time out today, Matty, to join me on the podcast. It's been really great to talk about culture, community, how to build it and how to identify things when it's not going your way, and just get to understand your story as well. So thanks for joining us today, and I know our listeners will get a lot from this.
I appreciate it, Kiz. I love what you're doing. I love seeing you progress as a coach, and you've got this system going. It's amazing. You've always put your head down in your work, so it's good to see this flourishing, man.
Cool. Thanks for that, Matty. All right,
No
catch you
worries,
later.
Coach. Be good. Thanks, guys. See ya.
So thanks for tuning into another episode of Elite Rugby SandC podcast. Remember to like, subscribe, and rate Elite Rugby SandC on Spotify, YouTube, and follow us on Instagram. Sign up to become a beast today via the link in the description or via Instagram page. Also, sign up to our newsletter and receive free bonus content each and every single week. So don't wait, make that good decision and join Elite Rugby SandC today and take your game to the next level.